Hey friends, how are you all doing? Welcome to Rise of the GM Lessons number 2. Hey, I just want to thank you all for your support and for listening and watching in so many different ways. We've had a really great time interacting with you all, and it's just been a really cool journey so far. So today is our, like I said, GM Lessons number 2, and what this is Matthew's on sabbatical right now. And so we are having every other week pre-made, pre-shot podcast episodes that we've been doing that are releasing. And so that's going to happen next week. Will be the next one of those, and then there'll be a break week, and then another one, and then a break week, and then we'll be back to our regular scheduled kind of programming. But what I wanted to do between that is to have these little GM lessons, not lessons that I'm giving, but lessons that I've learned and that I'm just kind of sharing with you in that. But I do want to run through the upcoming calendar a little bit here. So like I said, next week on April 4th, we're going to be back at one of our pre-recorded episodes, and that is tying in PC's backstory. And then what we'll be doing on April 18th is coming back with another pre-recorded episode, and we're going to be looking at character death and how we deal with that as GMs and how that can be a storytelling element as well. That's a thing we talked about throughout some questions early on, but we wanted to come back and get into that. But in the meantime, between those times, we're looking at these GM lessons. And today, the thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was GM burnout. I don't know, where you all are. Some of you may have been like doing this for a long, long time. You kind of figured out how to pace and rhythm through things. Some of you may be like brand new and are like, I'm not really there yet. I'm really excited and that kind of thing. But I feel like no matter what kind of phase we are, eventually there may be a point where we're feeling a little burned out just from the creative process or the rhythm of the thing or that kind of situation. So I wanted to address that a little bit because that's a thing that I felt with quite a bit. I've felt at times in many different facets of my life, but that idea of like burnout and like, man, I just don't have creative ideas right now. I'm feeling kind of tired, those kind of things. What I'm not going to do today is really talk about like why those happen. I think we're going to do an episode in the later months talking about like maybe some of those reasons that happens and how to deal with that. But what I wanted to speak into is just some ideas and some things that I've kind of tossed around to help me so that I'm not in that place where I'm like, I don't really want to do this today, kind of situation, and to be able to work through that. So the first thing I want to say about this, and it's probably feels like it goes without saying, but I think sometimes we just try to push through, and that is if you're feeling burned out, take a break. Like take a break. Don't feel like that's an impossible thing to do. And I know that may sound like, yeah, of course, take a break, but so often we just try to like push and push and push, and we're like, oh, I'll get through it. The group's depending on me, like all these things. And I think we need to be able to say like, okay, I'm going to actually just take a break, play something different for a week. If you're feeling kind of burned out, you're feeling tired, you're like the creative juices are not flowing, talk to your table and say, hey, like, what if we did something different this week? And that could be, you all play video games together, you play poker together, somebody else steps in and runs a game, or even like, I know there's times when I'm not feeling like really, really in the mode and things are just not flowing well for me. Sometimes just even being able to say, hey, I'm going to grab this module from a completely different system that's not like this. And that helps me to like still enjoy the time, with everybody, still run a game for the table. But to like allow for there to be a little bit of like fallow ground to like work with in the upcoming weeks. So take a break, maybe playing something different, maybe taking a week off. And I think that's like a table culture thing that I think is important for us to like set. I know a lot of people have different kind of situations you're in. We have a like kind of a pretty long-term ongoing game and the group stays pretty static for some time. So we have a lot of communication about that. Like if I'm not doing well, like if I'm just like, man, I just don't really have anything, or I'm just like really, really kind of burdened by stuff this week, or there's things going on. Same thing for the players. We're very clear about like, hey, we may need a week off just to like kind of reset. So trying to like build that into your table culture when you can. And I know that's like a kind of a privileged thing of us being able to have like pretty weekly gaming. But you don't want to get burned out when you could just say, hey, I need a little bit of a break, and we're going to jump back into this in full swing next time. Another kind of thing I think that can help a lot with GM burnout, if you're starting to feel that, is this idea of like enabling, encouraging, and equipping the people at your table, the players at your table, to like step into roles. That's kind of a big thing for us here at Rise of the GM, is we want like to equip and to encourage and to enable people to like run games and to like work on your craft, and we do that together in a lot of ways. But a big part for me is like wanting that, like to be able to offer that around the table as well. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to jump into the GM seat, and that's totally cool. But I like the idea of offering space for people. And, that may be not necessarily even throwing somebody into the GM seat, but saying like, hey, I'm wanting to create, like, I need to create this city. Could you all like throw some ideas into this that we could make use of? There's some really cool world building like techniques that are built into a lot of games that are kind of more group creativity. And that can take a big load off the GM in that place. If you're like, man, I've made a lot of cities, I don't really know what can like set this apart. Maybe your players have some really cool creative ideas that can be a part of that. So having them help out with creation. Another thing is like at the table, sometimes just like educating the rules is a really tough thing. It kind of becomes a slog sometimes. Having somebody who maybe really likes that and being able to delegate that to them can take a lot of pressure off of the GM too. If maybe that's something you're feeling burned out about, it's like, man, I gotta flip the book open and like look at these things constantly and try to remember all this stuff. If it's not like ingrained, maybe bringing somebody in. And I think that kind of to the next point is a really great way to introduce people to the rules of the game. And that allows to start in some ways like apprenticing people to step into that GM role. Maybe there's players at your table who would love the chance to run a module or like run a one shot that's been kind of just bubbling in them a little bit, while you've been running the game. And if you're feeling that week where it's like, I really need a break, maybe somebody else could step into that place too. So kind of keep an eye on that around your table. That's a really good way to keep the game going, keep the gaming time going and the table active, but also giving yourself a little bit of a rest time as well. And then like just from like a kind of an input area, this is something that I've been trying to work on a little bit more, is to, it's a good way to put it, consume or interact with like varied media. And maybe media is this not even exactly meant to like spark creative mode in whatever genre you're working in. So if playing D&D in like a fantasy setting, or maybe like red markets in the zombie apocalypse or whatever, my tendency would be like, oh, I want to kind of like immerse myself in those things. I want to be reading fantasy books, and I want to like watch some fantasy shows and really get into that, or whatever the genre is. But I think sometimes having stuff that's like way outside of that also can really spark some good creative flow for us. So maybe, reading something that's like nonfiction that you're interested in may spark an idea, and it's like, wow, that could be a really cool psychological thing that could come into this game that had nothing to do with fantasy or whatever genre, but now it kind of plays a role. So just an encouragement in that to like maybe even get out of the main mode that you're in to let some of those things just begin some ideas in your head. I think overall, one of the things when it comes to like dealing with burnout as a GM is kind of setting up a culture of this idea of like rest, and of when people are like feeling burned out, that we don't just push them to keep going, and allow them to rest for a time, and just to enjoy the game. So that could be like a session zero kind of thing. That could be if you're, maybe a new table getting together. That's an opportunity for you all to kind of have a conversation beforehand about like what expectations are. But I really encourage like that idea of, if you're starting to feel burned out, to do something about it, and to like enjoy the process in any way you can. So I'd love to hear things in the comments about this. Hopefully that's helpful to some of you, whether you're a veteran or whether you're like new at this. And hope you all have a great day, and happy gaming.